Welcome back to Smitty's Learning Room. Today we continue having a look at Core 2 and we're still looking at the focus question, how does the acquisition of skill affect performance, and looking at characteristics of skilled performers. So when we have a look at the syllabus, we know that it comes from the focus question, how does the acquisition of skill affect performance, and when we look at the students learn about, it's under assessment of skill and performance, and we're having a look at characteristics of skilled performers. Now, skilled performers are different for many reasons. So they're obviously going to be very different to unskilled performers, but they're mainly different due to their kinesthetic sense, their anticipation and timing, their consistency and technique. Now, when we have a look at skilled performers, they're highly motivated athletes who are trying to perform their best. They're very focused on what they're doing and obviously able to work as a team member and part of their team. And throughout this video, we're going to have a look at some of the things in depth, these 4 things here in depth, of how do we actually identify a skilled performer because of these 4 things. So when we look at a kinesthetic sense, this refers to the athlete's ability to make adjustments during performance. They have an awareness of their body position and muscle movements to allow for the change in performance. So for example, skilled performers have this kinesthetic sense, and so therefore they can actually adjust themselves mid-performance. And a great example of this is diving, and you can see in the picture here that so someone who's a diver can actually take off and be in the wrong position, but able to adjust themselves midway through their performance to ensure that their performance is executed effectively. So this is only a characteristics of someone who is at a very high level of skill and is able to understand what is required and able to imply internal feedback to their performance. The next concept we look at that skilled performers display is anticipation and timing. And skilled performers are able to accurately predict what is likely to occur. So they can actually look at the game ahead, or they can actually be on the field or the court and see something happening further down and then able to respond to that quite quickly. And obviously in the right amount of time and appropriately. So for example, a tennis player who is a very skilled tennis player will be able to assess the type of shot that their opponent has hit over the net and move in time to be able to return that shot and also return it in an appropriate manner. A not so skilled player might just have the capacity to return the shot but not actually return it to be a winning shot. So it's important that we have a look at skilled performers in relation to how they anticipate movement and how they time that movement in order to perform. The next concept we have a look at is consistency. Now, a skilled performer doesn't necessarily execute skills correctly all day, all the time, but they're able to perform the skills at a high standard on a regular basis. So when we look at athletes at the autonomous stage, we're looking at athletes who have practiced this, they've executed the skill over and over again, and it's basically automatic that it's consistently repeated. So for example, if we have a think back to the early 2000s when Hazem El Masri was playing for the Bulldogs, and he was a very good goal scorer and he could score goals from basically anywhere. He had very good consistency because his skill acquisition around kicking goals was autonomous level. The next concept we have a look at is technique. Now, skilled performers have good technique, and then this means that they perform movements that are safe, efficient and effective. So obviously learners at like the cognitive or the associative stage might not have as good technique and therefore are more prone to injuries or more prone to mistakes. And so skilled performers, they have such great technique that their mistakes are minimal and they are obviously able to participate in sport with minimal injuries because they know how to apply the correct technique. And if that technique is somehow pear-shaped, they can use their kinesthetic sense to realign their technique. So in summary, when we're trying to identify a skilled performer, there are 4 things that we can see from them, and that's that kinesthetic sense, the anticipation and timing, consistency and technique. And we often say when we're watching sports of a very high level, we're like, oh, look at that person run, they look so amazing. But now with this knowledge, you can actually explain in depth as to why that person is actually a skilled performer in relation to these 4 aspects.